On the morning of November 7th, 1944, 12 American P-38 Lightning fighters streaked over the clear Balkan sky. Their engines thundering like rolling storms over the hills near Niš, as Colonel Clarence Curly Edwinson led the group on a search and destroy mission intended to intercept retreating German forces. The men were confident, seasoned, and trained for precision strikes against enemy convoys. But what they would soon encounter was a tragic twist of fate that turned allies into accidental adversaries in a brutal moment of confusion and chaos. This was a day that would be whispered in the annals of World War II as the dangerous blur of war and misidentification collided. Their radar screens and binocular sightings showed a long convoy moving north. Columns of tanks and trucks crawling over the rolling terrain. And to the Americans, this sight mirrored the exact behavior of Wehrmacht units fleeing the Balkan collapse, which is why they dove with precision and confidence, unleashing a torrent of .50 caliber machine gun fire that ripped through the unsuspecting column, metal screaming against metal and steel crushing gravel as the Lightning's armament chewed through what they believed were enemy vehicles and troops. The explosions bright against the quiet countryside, but hiding a bitter truth below. They had struck not the Germans, but Soviet and Yugoslav forces, allies pressing forward to overtake the same retreating Axis troops. As the smoke of the strafing run still hung in the air, another horror unfolded. Anti-aircraft batteries around the airfield beneath them, mistaking the sound of Allied thunder for an Axis strike, blasted upwards with lethal intent, and one of the Lightnings took a direct hit, wings and elevators shredded, control lost, sending the P-38 spiraling in flames toward the ground, echoing cries crackling over the radio as desperate attempts to correct a spiraling descent failed, wrenching the hearts of those still airborne as they watched a comrade's aircraft implode in a fiery crash. A kilometer from the field as steel met soil. In the haze of that disastrous first encounter, Soviet Yak-9 fighters began taxiing and roaring down the runway, engines at full throttle, as Lieutenant Krivonogic and his wingman, Junior Lieutenant Shapulia, seized their place in history by lifting from the grass and treetops in a desperate gambit to confront what was announced to them over the airwaves as enemy aircraft, a horrifying sight of P-38s cutting across the canvas of the sky they were sworn to defend. The Yak-9s raced toward altitude, hearts pounding, closing fast on the American Lightnings overhead, smoke and fire trailing behind them like fingers of vengeance pulled from earth to sky. The battle intensified with brutal simplicity. Altitudes shifted like riders in a frenzied ballet. Wings whipped in high G turns. Tracer fire kissed the wind as both sides fought with deep reflexes and grim resolve. Some Yak-9s managed to climb faster than their comrades, only to be ravaged by the precise American crosshairs. And before long, the Soviet losses mounted while frantic calls for reinforcement echoed over the chaos, revealing both bravery and desperation. It was then that reinforcements arrived. A fresh group of Yak-3 fighters led by Captain Alexander Kaldanov, who had been briefed incorrectly, instructed to attack German reconnaissance planes, not American fighters, and as Kaldanov and his pilots approached the carnage below, their eyes opened wide to the unmistakable silhouette of the P-38s, a realization that froze them mid-ascent. Their mission suddenly and shockingly changed as the truth dawned upon them with bone-deep clarity. These were not the dreaded FW-189's reconnaissance planes they expected, but Allied aircraft cutting a trail of destruction through what should have been a friendly sky. In a moment that could only be described as surreal, Koldunov dipped his wings in a frantic attempt to signal the American flyers, hoping desperately that the red stars on his yak would be seen as an emblem of alliance, not enemy. But the lightning formation, gunned and focused by instinct and confusion, mistook his gesture for aggression, turning and engaging his craft in a furious exchange of fire that sent him spiraling into evasive maneuvers, his plane bucking and yawing as he dodged a hailstorm of American shots. And the sky above Nish became a chaotic thunder of machine guns, smoke trail, and shattered hope. The horrifying truth finally pierced the air when Koldunov came flying alongside Colonel Edwinson himself, and for a brief second time seemed to freeze in space. Edwinson's eyes widened in disbelief as he stared at a comrade in arms whose very presence should have signaled unity and joint purpose rather than hostility. Recognition dawned with a chill that crawled down every spine as the realization struck that friend had been firing upon friend, that Soviet pilots and Allied P-38s were caught in a tragic misunderstanding born of the fog of war and the terror of the unknown. And for the first time in that day of reckoning, the engines above Nish quieted, wings banks turned westward, and fighters fled the scene, chased only by the ghosts of what had just transpired. Some Yak pilots turned back for home, while others held cues of disbelief in their eyes, smoke rising from wreckage below, marking the painful testament that even in unity, war can breed confusion that results in needless loss. The incident, later referred to by historians as the Nish incident, rippled through command channels and diplomatic corridors, triggering immediate and tense negotiations as the U.S. military issued a formal explanation to the Soviet High Command, outlining how mistaken identity and flawed reconnaissance had led to the tragic engagement, a moment of truth that threatened for a time to escalate beyond localized tragedy into strategic conflict, only to be diffused by careful communication and acknowledgement of error. Still, the full account of that fateful day remains heavily classified, fragments preserved in archives and recollections that will not fully surface for decades. A sobering reminder of how the chaotic fog of war can turn allies into temporary adversaries with devastating consequence. If you've been captivated by this dramatic tale of skill, strategy, and the fog of war, and you want to uncover more stories of military mastery, historic battles, and cutting-edge air, naval, and ground operations, make sure to hit that subscribe button and join the Forcestrategy family. By subscribing, you'll gain front-row access to in-depth analysis of modern and historic military engagements, detailed breakdowns of tactics, and cinematic storytelling that brings every maneuver, every dogfight, and every battlefield moment vividly to life. Don't miss out on mastering the art of strategy. Click subscribe now and stay informed, engaged, and inspired with Forcestrategy, where military might meet strategic brilliance.